British Columbia, a land of breathtaking beauty, towering mountains that touch the sky, endless forests that stretch to the horizon, crystal rivers, rugged coastlines, and world-class vineyards. From the powder slopes of our interior to the mild green winters of Vancouver, where snow is a rare visitor, and the city enjoys one of the gentlest climates in all of Canada. This is a province blessed like few others on earth. Our culture is rich, our tourism world-renowned, and our natural resources among the most abundant anywhere. Forests, minerals, energy, agriculture, and ports that open the door to the Pacific. British Columbia has everything it needs to be an economic powerhouse, not just for our province, but for all of Canada. Yet for too long, that promise has been undermined. A decade of NDP government has delivered higher taxes, crushing regulation, and ideological insanity. Pipelines stalled, resource projects buried in red tape, property rights eroded through legislative negligence, court rulings, and policy experiments that have left homeowners and investors uncertain. Housing is unaffordable, streets are less safe, and families are struggling while the province's enormous potential sits idle. The result? Record deficits, stalled growth, and a province that feels held back from the future it deserves. Tonight, that changes. British Columbia needs bold, principled new leadership. That is why we are here. On this stage stand the candidates with the courage to defend their ideas and go toe-to-toe with their opponents. Any one of these candidates could do a better job than David Eby. The question is, who will you choose to become our next premier? A leader ready to restore common sense, unlock our resources, protect property rights, fix the housing crisis, and put British Columbians first again. The deadline to get a membership to the Conservative Party of British Columbia is fast approaching. And to vote in this race, you need a membership. The decisions made by the select few who have one will shape our province for a generation. Tonight, the conversation begins. Welcome to the first BC Conservative Leadership Debate.
Conservative Leadership Debate hosted by Juno News. We are live here in the old capital of British Columbia, New Westminster. My name is Aaron Gunn, Member of Parliament for North Island, Powell River, and I am seated here, yes. And I am seated here beside author and former BC Conservative board member Lindsay Shepherd. We will be your, We will be your moderators this evening. And my first question, though, isn't for any of the candidates, but it's for the audience in this theater tonight. Who is ready and excited for a robust democratic debate? All right. First, we will begin this evening, as the patriotic Canadians that I know we all are, with the singing of our national anthem, to be led by Conservative MLA Bruce Bandman. Bruce, can you make your way to the stage here?
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please stand and will you join me? Sing it loud and sing it proud, the anthem of our great nation. O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all our sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true North, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you, Bruce. The order in which our 4 candidates appear on stage has been randomly generated. I will welcome the candidates on stage in that order. The leadership contestants present tonight are Mrs. Carrie Lynn Findlay, former Conservative MP and Cabinet Minister. Mr. Ian Black, former BC Liberal MLA and Cabinet Minister. Mr. Yuri Fulmer, entrepreneur and Chancellor of Capilano University. Mr. Warren Ham, contractor, helicopter maintenance engineer, and entrepreneur. Thank you to these 4 individuals for seeing the value in putting their ideas out in the open for not only BC Conservative members, but for all British Columbians.
And thank you for having the political courage to defend your beliefs, your principles, and your policies on this stage here tonight.
And a reminder to those watching at home, if you would like to vote in this leadership race to make one of these individuals the next leader of the BC Conservative Party and Premier of British Columbia, you must purchase a BC Conservative Party membership by April 18th by going to conservativebc.ca.
Our debate this evening will include opening statements, rapid-fire questioning, long-form debate, and finally, closing statements. While we welcome audience participation in the form of applause, any disruptive behavior will result in your removal by security. When we also remind candidates to please avoid speaking over one another and to limit making their points to the times that they are allotted to speak. And we'll also have these red and yellow placards here, and these are not equity cards from the NDP convention. These are, when you have 30 seconds left in your speaking time, you will be shown the yellow card and the red card when your time has expired.
With that, let's begin with the opening statements. 90 seconds per candidate. Will go in the order that you were announced. So please start us off, Mrs. Carrie Lynn Findlay, 90 seconds.
Well, thank you, and respect to Juno News for promoting independent conservative dialogue. I've only been a candidate under a conservative banner. I'm a conservative by conviction, not convenience. I was born in Ladysmith, one of 6 kids to an electrician dad, and I know that results mean more than words. Like many volunteers that are conservative, we kind of do it all. We get active in our communities and we donate, and in politics we pass laws that lift up and support workers and small business people, the lifeblood of our economy. No crushing high taxes, reckless spending, and high-priced virtue signaling for us. So we need a true conservative to lead. I have the track record, the lived experience, the litigation, and parliamentary experience to bring BC back to prosperity by governance efficiency and unleashing our resources, to make BC home again for investment and optimism. I'm a King's Counsel, civil litigator lawyer, equity partner in law firms. As a business owner, I understand workplace productivity and motivation. I've served in many roles, among them Minister of National Revenue and on Treasury Board. For 2.5 years, I managed a workforce of over 55,000 and administered the nation's tax dollars. Together with the finance minister and the PM at that time, we brought in lower taxes. We brought in income splitting for seniors, lowered the GST, tax-free childcare benefits.
Thank you, Mrs.
Teams in our
Findlay.
nations, I can lead here. Thank you.
Mr. Ian Black, 90 seconds.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here. Across British Columbia, I'm hearing the same thing everywhere I go. People are working hard, they're doing everything right, and yet they're feeling like they're falling behind. And they're certainly ready for change, for leadership that can defeat the NDP government and get British Columbia back on track. Housing's too expensive, costs keep going up, and for too many people, it's getting harder to see a path forward. The truth is, this didn't happen overnight. It's the result of a government that's become too slow, too intrusive, and too disconnected from the realities of those of us every single day. But here's what I believe. British Columbia has everything it needs to succeed. We have the resources, the opportunity, and most importantly, we have you, the people who can build this into the strongest economy in the country. There are clear failures of this NDP government that need to be repealed, like DRIPA and SOGI and unsafe supply. I will take a decisive, common-sense approach to fixing that, but leadership is also about staying focused on the fundamentals, what actually matters and what drives results for BC families. My commitment is straightforward. Make it the best place to invest, to live, to work, and to raise a family. That means restoring confidence into our housing market again so it can get built faster and at a lower cost, and growing our economy and restoring investment, and fixing the systems that are driving up costs for people. And if we do that, people won't just get by, they'll actually get ahead once again. And I know that this is possible because I've done it before and I'm ready to do it again. I'm focused on what brings us together and what will grow our party. I have the leadership needed to defeat the NDP government because I've done it twice before, and we'll get British Columbia back on track. Thank you for being here.
"90 seconds to Mr. Yuri Fulmer."
Thank you so much. You know, I've been blessed to have had a number of roles in British Columbia. I've both been an entrepreneur, like many of you, a community volunteer. But the role that matters most to me is that I'm a dad. And I've got a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old sitting at home who I promised could stay up and watch Dad on TV tonight. Now, admittedly, I'm competing with, I think it's Frozen, Elsa and Anna, and I'm competing with my son loves Mr. Beast on YouTube. So he asked me, you know, Dad, is this going to be a super interesting evening to watch it? And I said, you know, Hayden, I actually don't think it is. And he said, why, Dad? And I said, well, I'm going to sit with 3 other good conservatives that we're really in violent agreement on most topics. And you're going to hear that tonight. You're going to hear that we all want to repeal DRIPA because it's nonsense. You're going to hear that we all are worried Section 35 has become an Indigenous veto. You're all going to hear that we think our healthcare system's in shambles. You're all going to hear that we don't feel safe on our streets. And you're all going to hear from all of us that British Columbia has become unaffordable for everybody. But none of that matters a hill of beans if we can't get elected to make a change here. And the thing that I bring to this is I've actually gone out and done a deal. And Dallas and I have agreed that we will not split the vote on the right of centre. Because in BC, when we as Conservatives split the vote, we lose. 1972, we got Dave Barrett. 1991 and 1996, we got Mike Harcourt and Glenn Clark, and we lost a decade in British Columbia. In 2017, we split the vote and we lost again, and in 2024, we split the vote and we got David Eby and the disaster that is today. I'm the only one with a solution to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Warren Ham, 90 seconds.
My name is Warren Ham, and I'm not here to manage decline. I'm here to build a united and prosperous British Columbia. For the past 30 years, I've been a contractor, a pilot, an aircraft engineer, and business owner. I built things in this province, helicopters, homes, businesses, and opportunities for British Columbians, and it's been good to me. But we're reaching a point where we can no longer possible for the next generation to have the same successes unless we make a change now. I'm not a career politician. I'm not an academic, and I haven't sat in the legislature, and I've never worked a political backroom. However, I successfully challenged the government in the BC Supreme Court twice, acting in bad faith and for misfeasance in public office. I stood up for citizens from the outside, and I'm ready to do it again from the inside for the next Premier and protect every taxpayer dollar and property rights for all citizens. As Premier, I will permanently freeze property taxes for those over 65 years of age and will hold local government accountable and have efficiency audits on staffing, operations, spending, and service delivery. No more tax increases until local governments are held accountable.
Thank
We
you,
will-
Mr. Ham.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, candidates. We will now proceed with part one of the rapid fire section of this debate. Candidates have been given placards with a green yes side and a red no side. Lindsay and I will be asking a lightning round of questions to which candidates will answer either yes or no. And we're going to start off our debate with a story that is broken here in British Columbia in just the past week, where it is now being reported that a confidence vote could take place in the provincial legislature as early as May, a vote that the NDP government could quite possibly lose. Would you support the Conservative caucus voting to bring down the NDP government and forcing an early election, even if it meant suspending the leadership race and potentially making interim leader Trevor Halford, and not yourself, the next Premier of British Columbia? Okay. Thank you.
Sooner the better.
Under former BC Conservative leader John Rustad, the caucus lost 5 MLAs who either left or were expelled by Rustad. As leader, would you open the door to these former Conservative MLAs?
That's a blended question. That's not a yes or no. The caucus has to weigh in. You can't do that as a leader without consulting caucus.
I think the question is, would we open the door?
Open the
Yes.
door.
Do
I'd
we,
open the
do
door.
we usher them in?
Yeah.
Okay.
TBD.
The audience can make with it what they may. Question number 3. Do you believe there should be a greater role for the private sector in the delivery of health care in British Columbia?
Do you have a bigger sign?
Would you, as Premier, scrap SOGI 123?
As Premier, would you be open to raising taxes on British Columbians?
There's no room.
The federal Liberals have made it easier to buy a cigarette than lower harm options like nicotine pouches. Do you support access to nicotine harm reduction products in convenience stores?
Nicotine in convenience stores? Yeah, okay. I did think that. I'm not a smoker. I don't know these things.
As long as they're checking ID.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. As Premier, would you be willing to use the notwithstanding clause to overrule court decisions you viewed as judicial overreach and contrary to the interests of British Columbians?
Every single time.
Did you support vaccine passports during COVID-19 lockdowns?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Would you support a strategic pact with One BC or any other electoral arrangement that would see the Conservative Party of BC run anything less than a full slate of candidates in every BC riding in the next election?
Were you satisfied with John Rustad's caucus management style?
I wasn't in caucus. I
Yeah,
can't-
that's,
I can't
I don't think that's a
comment.
fair question. I wasn't there.
Thank you, candidates. Now we will enter the long-form debate portion of the evening. Candidates will have 90 seconds to respond to the question put forth. If a candidate references one of their fellow contestants during their response, the person referenced will be permitted a 30-second rebuttal.
And we should point out that the candidate actually has to be here to be able to have their 30-second rebuttal time. Sorry, I had to go off script for a second.
Can I play the part of a candidate not here in that case?
I think there's some of us that would like to do that. The first topic tonight is the economy, cost of living, and housing. British Columbia is running record deficits while residents face rising costs across housing, energy, and everyday basic goods. What specific spending cuts or revenue changes would you implement in your first budget And how would your plan directly lower the cost of living for British Columbians? First to answer will be Mr. Fulmer, then Mr. Black, Mrs. Finley, and Mr. Ham. Mr. Fulmer, you have 90 seconds.
This is very dear to my heart. You know, I hear from young British Columbians all the time that they can't afford to be British Columbians, and that absolutely breaks my heart. You know, the biggest cost to most people isn't housing. The biggest cost to most people is taxes, right? Taxes take the biggest cut of your paycheck. They take the first cut of your paycheck, and they leave you what little there is afterwards. So the best thing that government can do, and one of the key reasons I'm a conservative, is I believe in less government. I believe in living conservative values, but I believe in fundamentally less government and keeping the government out of most of the things they do today. And if we do that, we can put money back into British Columbians' hands, because nobody knows how to make their life more affordable than families. So let's give them as much of their taxes back as we can so they can spend it how they choose to make their life more affordable. We do need to increase housing supply. That's a no-brainer. We also need to encourage British Columbians and young British Columbians that they may need to go where housing is also cheaper. I've traveled this province a couple of times now. I think I'm the only person who's been to all 93 ridings. And you know, when I was in Cranbrook, they tell me you can get a brand new townhouse for $349,000, $450,000 in the north. Like, those are places where young British Columbians can get good, well-paying, family-supporting jobs, coupled with lower taxes and lower cost of housing. That is a recipe for success in our amazing province. That's what we need to do to make British Columbia more successful. Refund people their money so that they can spend it themselves.
Thank you, Mr. Fulmer. Now to Mr. Black, 90 seconds to you, sir.
You know, I've lost track of the number of conversations I've had with normally people my age and 20-odd years older who are beside themselves with worry that their children and grandchildren in some cases are leaving British Columbia because they can't afford to live here. And you've got a government that's been spending to an excess that's never been seen before. So there's a list of things I would do, but I'll touch on two in the time that I have. First of all, the civil service in this province has grown by over 55%. 60% of all jobs created in the last decade have actually been government jobs, and not from the private sector. So one of the first things I would do to cut the costs in government is I would immediately cut 25% of our civil service within the first 2 years. With a commitment. Oh wait, there's more. With a commitment to make further reductions to get it down to 2019 levels by the fourth year. The second thing I would do is this. Now, this is shocking as an anti-tax guy. The small business community, bearing in mind I used to be the small business minister, they used to talk about taxes, but every small business owner I've talked to in the last 3 months touring the province is way more concerned about regulation and government getting in their way. So the second major promise I've made here is that within the first 100 days of being premier of this province, I'll instruct the small business minister to go on a mission to get the regulatory burden to 10% lower than 2017 levels within a 2-year period.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Mrs. Finley, 90 seconds to you.
Thank you. This is where experience does count. Because as I alluded to in my opening statement, when I was Minister of Revenue, administering all the tax money of our nation, we came out of a crippling recession. And we did it by having leaner government, more freedom. We lowered corporate and individual tax burden. We brought the GST down from 7% to 5%. We brought in income splitting for seniors. We got back to a balanced budget and surplus. If I can be part of doing that for our whole country, I know I can do it for our province. We need to have less government. Government is the problem right now in BC. $183 billion and climbing in debt. Debt servicing, the number 3 line item in the last budget. We've had 5 downgrades of our credit rating. That means that we're already paying more interest on the debt than we were when they put the budget out just 3 weeks ago. So we have much to do. I have said that I will remove the tax on gas and diesel. That will bring costs down everywhere, and that I will also follow Manitoba's lead and take PST off of groceries. We do that by unleashing our resources and upping our revenues and leaning out government.
Thank you, Mrs. Finley. And finally, to you, sir, Mr. Ham, for 90 seconds.
Thanks. I have 2 daughters, both make great money, both nurses. They have their own businesses, 2 jobs. both single and not able, even together, to afford a home in a small community where I live in the Kootenays. So the cost of housing is just out of control. At City Hall, we've grown City Hall 4 times in the last 20 years, even though the population has only increased by 33%. So government at the City Hall level and municipal level is too high, and the cost to build anything is just excessive. The fact that this province and the government says that they're going to build affordable housing is really a fallacy. Government's not capable of building affordable housing, never mind affordable green housing. When government gets involved in the housing sector, costs rise by 300 or 400% because it's a government project. So we have to take the time to support small business and the private sector and make sure that they have the tools that they need to actually build affordable housing so people like my daughters are able to afford a home in this province.
Thank you, Mr. Ham.
Our next topic is property rights and Aboriginal title. Here's the question. How would you balance Indigenous land claims and treaty rights with the need for legal certainty for homeowners, businesses, and resource development in British Columbia? First to answer will be Mr. Ham, then Mrs. Finley, Mr. Black, and Mr. Fulmer. Mr. Ham, 90 seconds.
Thanks. We need to replace DRIPA after it's repealed with a transparent framework that respects Indigenous constitutional rights under Section 35 and restores provincial authority over land use and mineral rights. Clear consultation timelines and hard deadlines, no NDAs, and every document should be made public. 150 families in Richmond are wondering if they still own their homes, mortgage lenders are refusing to lend, and development financing has collapsed. This isn't abstract policy, this is people's lives, and we appeal to the Cowichan decision aggressively all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada if necessary. Thanks.
Mrs. Finley, on to you.
Thank you, and I need to tell you a little story because in the late 90s, I was suddenly widowed. I had a 6- and 7-year-old. I was a single mom, and I moved into a leasehold property on Musqueam land in South Vancouver. And it had been a peaceful neighborhood, but a year after I moved in, they changed the taxing authority from the City of Vancouver based on market value to the Musqueam. Then the BC government stepped in and they changed the BC Assessment Act and said you will no longer be taxed on fair market value, you will be taxed as though you had a property that was freehold off reserve. Taxes went up triple. Then there was a dispute over the amount of money we should pay each year. We made an offer, Musqueam didn't accept it, they wouldn't meet with us, and they sued us. 150 families in a neighborhood now found themselves in a costly litigation lawsuit. Because I was a lawyer and I was invested, I ended up leading that team to the BC Supreme Court, BC Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court of Canada, and we won for those leaseholders. And I'm saying we must get rid of DRIPA. Yes, we must respect history, but we have a collective history to respect in BC. And 95% of us can't be left out in the cold just because 5% Indigenous have won a court case out of Richmond. That applies to all the province, not just in Richmond. So we need to be on guard. Thank you.
Mr. Black?
You know, this has been an interesting experience in one way that's sort of amusing. The fact that every single person in this room knows the name of a specific piece of legislation is rather shocking. Right? That's never happened before, but the anxiety that goes with that is very, very real. As I've been traveling across the province, there was a gentleman named Mike in Langley, there's a gentleman named Devinder up in Prince George, and the anxiety that people are feeling around private property rights is very, very real. And it's unprecedented. It's leaving British Columbians asking a question that I never thought I'd hear. And that question is, who actually owns British Columbia? Is it 6 million citizens or is it 300,000 First Nations? And we are in a position now where we have no choice but to repeal Dripper. We have no choice but to repeal Section 8.1 of the Interpretations Act. And I believe we've got no choice but to go to the other premiers in this country and ask them to look at opening up Section 35 of our Constitution to reinsert a little section that says, that little section into our Constitution that says, accept private property rights when it comes to Indigenous rights and titles, so that this never, ever, ever has to be brought up again, so that nobody questions about whether the fundamental underpinning of every Western democracy is private property rights. And we never have to find ourselves here again. But we do need to move forward thereafter with a system that's got clarity and timelines and partnerships, and we have to rethink this whole approach. And when I'm entrusted with the job of Premier, that will be one of the first things we have to tackle. Thanks.
Mr. Fulmer?
Let me be incredibly clear. If this is not the biggest issue of our lifetimes, I don't know what is. Never before in Canadian history, since Confederation, have your private property rights been challenged by your government. This is an outrage in our province, and it needs to be dealt with. And it is going to take courage, my friends. It is going to take a premier who is prepared to stand up, be courageous. There will be tens of thousands of people protesting on the lawn of the legislature, but somebody is going to have to stand up, make sure Dripper is repealed, make sure all of the legislation that surrounds it is repealed, enshrine private property rights in legislation, go to the feds and make sure that we make clear that private property rights are a constitutional right. And we need to remind Indigenous people that Section 35 is consultation. It is not a veto over British Columbia, and we've got to do it now.
Okay, and we are now going to thank you, candidates, for those answers. Aren't they doing a great job? What do you guys think? We are now going to take a very brief break just to give the candidates a moment to regroup. Please take a moment to watch this brief message from our hosts, Juno News.
Hey there. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kian Bexty. I'm the co-founder of Juno News, and I want to take a quick moment to say thank you to everyone who showed up today to make Juno News' very first in-person debate a success. I'm filming this a day ahead, but I have a high degree of confidence that things are going to go well. For those of you in the audience, thank you. For those of you on stage who are putting your name forward, defending your ideas, and going toe-to-toe with your opponents, your contribution to democracy in British Columbia does not go unnoticed. Independent journalism in Canada is in a brutal death match with the legacy media. Justin Trudeau and now Mark Carney are throwing buckets of cash at the dying legacy media, while independent outlets like Juno News fight every day to share the news that the propagandists don't want you to hear. Whether it is in Tumbler Ridge or in Ottawa, Juno News has your back, and we thank you for showing up today to have ours. As a thank you, Juno News has an offer for the in-person audience here today. It's the best deal we've ever given anyone. As a Juno News subscriber, not only do you get access to your favorite politician's favorite newsletter, like the Juno Jumpstart, your one-stop shop for all the political trends in the country, you get access to things like the Candace Malcolm Show, Mark Petrone, our documentaries, and investigative journalism across the country. It's a great time to become a Juno News subscriber, not only because we're offering the in-person audience here today 50% off an annual subscription, but because by subscribing, you are telling Mark Carney and the legacy media that we don't need them to get the news out and to share the stories that matter to you. Juno News is offering you 50% off. All you have to do is scan this QR code right here on the screen and subscribe. Support independent journalists with Juno News that work every day across the country to share the news that we need to hear, that democracy relies on, and that Mark Carney just hates. Subscribing supports independent journalists and gives you the news that you need to stay on top of political trends in British Columbia and in Canada. Tonight, this is an offer just for you. 50% off an annual subscription, and all you have to do is scan this QR code. The best offer we've ever made. Take advantage of it now, become a Juno News reader, and support independent journalism today. Thank you for coming out, and good luck to every candidate who put their name forward.
As a reminder, candidates have been given placards with a green yes and a red no. Aaron and I will be asking a lightning round of questions to which candidates will answer either yes or no.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. The first, or the 11th rapid fire question. Would you follow the lead of Alberta Premier Danielle Smith and Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe in opposing the federal Liberal gun confiscation scheme and refusing to dedicate police resources to enforcing it?
What a waste of money.
As Premier, would you continue to permit and allow drug injection sites, also known as safe injection sites, in British Columbia?
As Premier, would you support ending the ICBC auto insurance monopoly and allowing competition from the private sector?
Do you agree with Danielle Smith's Bill 26 that banned surgical sexual transitions for children?
As Premier, would you end DEI policies, including race and gender-based hiring in the public service, and commit to hiring solely based on merit?
Have you participated in land acknowledgements that describe British Columbia as unceded territory?
Over the past few weeks, British Columbia has received a series of historic credit downgrades. Credit rating downgrades? Would you be willing to make significant cuts to the size of BC's public service in order to rein in what is now the largest deficit in BC history?
Should non-citizen permanent residents be allowed to vote in party leadership races?
Say that again, please.
Should non-citizen permanent residents be allowed to vote in party leadership races?
It's not our call.
It's not up to us.
Well, the party decides, isn't it?
Are you asking that from a party
Party
standpoint, from a
conventions.
legal standpoint? I'm not sure.
From a party standpoint, I think would be the question.
I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
So I'd say yes.
So sorry, the question was, should permanent residents be allowed to vote in the Conservative Party leadership?
In party leadership
As
races,
they are
yeah.
today.
They're allowed to
They're allowed
now.
today.
Yeah, they're allowed to now.
They are
And,
They're allowed to now.
I'm not comfortable with it, but it isn't just our decision. That's all.
Okay. Back in 2018, the city of Victoria tore down the statue of the father of Confederation and Canada's first Prime Minister, Sir John A. Macdonald. It was the
Shame.
first of many to be torn down across the country. As Premier, would you be willing to follow the example of Premier Ford in Ontario and restore public access to the statue?
Absolutely.
Earlier this year, former Chilliwack school trustee Barry Neufeld was fined $750,000 by the BC Human Rights Tribunal for expressing views in which he criticized child gender transitions and the SOGI 123 curriculum. Would you abolish the British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal?
Yes.
But I'd like to explain, there are legitimate human rights complaints that should have a form of tribunal to bring forward. However, what happened to Barry is untenable, and that tribunal is completely out of line, should not have the power to levy life-ruining fines, and he should never have been fined for his beliefs.
Okay. We are now going to get back into the long-form portion of our debate. You will recall that candidates have 90 seconds to respond to the questions they put forth, and if a candidate references one of their fellow contestants who happen to be here during their response, that person referenced will be permitted a 30-second rebuttal.
Our next topic is crime and public safety. The question is, under the federal Liberals and provincial NDP, public safety has deteriorated. Repeat violent offenders roam free, hard drug use was decriminalized, and we see a toxic fusion of money laundering, organized crime, and ethnic extortion. What specific actions would you take to dismantle these criminal networks, lock up violent offenders, and restore public safety in British Columbia? First to answer will be Mrs. Finley, then Mr. Fulmer, Mr. Ham, and Mr. Black. Mrs. Finley, 90 seconds.
Thank you. Well, as Parliamentary Secretary to Justice, I did bring in and shepherded through the legislation Safe Streets and Communities Act, and that was to specifically target repeat violent offenders. Violent crime in Canada went down by about 35% because of that. Unfortunately, NDP Liberal coalitions have drawn that back to where now we have crime, disorder, chaos. And it doesn't have to be this way. We have a criminal code that is purely federal, but administration of justice is provincial. In our administration, under a previous NDP government, they changed the charge threshold and went from a reasonable likelihood of conviction to a substantial likelihood of conviction, which I would reverse, because what it's meant is that criminals think BC is a great place to come because they get charged less, and when they are charged, they do less time. This catch and release policy is supposed to be for fishing, not for criminals. We don't have all that many criminals in Canada, but they're very, very busy and very prolific, and we need to keep them behind bars, especially when they're violent and repeat. Thank you.
Mr. Fulmer?
As an avid fisherman, I'm not even sure I agree with her on the catch and release and fishing. That's another topic. Look, this is the issue I hear all around the province. British Columbians are fearful in the streets in their own communities. They pay taxes. They pay taxes so that police enforce laws, and when people break the law, they get taken to jail. It's that simple. We live in one of 3 provinces in Canada. It's us, New Brunswick, and Quebec, where the police cannot lay criminal charges. Let me say that again. The police in British Columbia cannot lay criminal charges. It's absolutely unacceptable. We need to have the police actually lay criminal charges, keep people in jail. We need an expedited track for repeat offenders so that people who commit the same crime more than once get access to justice faster and get kept in jail longer. It's that simple. We need more police on the streets, and we don't need them filling in forms. We need more police on the front line of policing, walking a beat, making sure British Columbians are safe. The extortion crisis is out of hand, and if you believe it's a South Asian issue, you've missed the boat on this. This is about all British Columbians and nobody feeling unsafe in their own home. But I'll leave you with one thing. Remember that we have a premier in this province, David Eby, who wrote a book called How to Sue the Police. And so you wonder why we're in the position we are today. You sure ain't going to win a Nobel Prize for that book? But remember, he wrote that book and he stands by that book, and that's why we are where we are, and that's what we've got to change, good people.
Mr. Ham?
Well, crime's rampant in the Kootenays. I've had break-ins in 3 different buildings. I've had an encampment move into my basement of one of my buildings when I was out of town for 3 weeks. It's real, and the police couldn't do anything about it. The police couldn't remove them. We had to remove them out of the building ourselves. We need to give police the tools they need, and like Mr. Fulmer said, you've got to be able to charge them, not allow the crowd to charge them, but the police themselves. We have to end catch and release, give the tools again to the police that they need, and support communities, have a crime watch where people can report in crimes and have something done about it in real time.
Mr. Black?
There's something very unnerving when you're sitting with a group of, in these cases, I'm thinking of grown men throughout the Fraser Valley and in Surrey, where you are asking their opinion on a variety of concerns they have about what's going on in British Columbia, and the look in their eyes is fear. They're worried for the families and they're worried for the businesses, and it's the bullets are flying. And the fact that we're in that spot is it's a head scratcher for me, and it's utterly unacceptable. I've discussed what we might do about it, specifically on the extortion side, and we've got to get some tools into the hands of police that they don't currently have. We've got to get high-definition cameras at major intersections and business corridors and where people gather. We've got to use drone technology. It's faster to get them in the air. It protects our men and women in uniform. We've got to take advantage of that. We've got to take advantage of what's been done in other jurisdictions. Quebec's a great example when they crack down on organized crime. And we've got to go to school in those jurisdictions as well. And we've got to expand our provincial police force. It's 1,000 officers. Well, it was 1,000 officers 10 years ago when we had 1.2 fewer million British Columbians. So there's lots of work that can be done there, but I also want to quickly cross over here to one of the root causes of our criminal problem is mental health and drug addiction that's untreated. One of the first provinces I made was to redevelop the 244 acres of the Riverview lands to actually take people off the street who cannot take care of themselves. It is not civilized and it is not a conservative value to allow people to be on the streets like that, and it is a very, very high priority for me. But here's what happens when you do that. You'll make sure that you get the patients in Riverview and you get the criminals in jail. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, candidates, for those answers. On to our next topic, resource development and pipelines. British Columbia is endowed with an almost unimaginable amount of natural resource wealth: forestry and mining, fishing and agriculture, natural gas. What is your strategy to unleash the wealth of British Columbia's resources and make this province one of the wealthiest jurisdictions in the entire world? First to answer will be Mr. Black, then Mr. Ham, Mr. Fulmer, and Mrs. Finley. Mr. Black, to you for 90 seconds.
You know, I have one of my favorite questions to take when I've been traveling around the province is, where do you stand on pipelines? And I love to tell people that I'm the guy who chartered an Air Canada flight from Vancouver to Edmonton and filled it with 200 business leaders, Indigenous leaders, labor leaders, and community leaders so we could fly to see an NDP Premier and let him know that 65% of British Columbia hasn't lost its mind and we actually want to get our natural resources to Tidewater and stop selling them to the Americans at a 30% discount. So I'm a big believer in this stuff. You know, we've got 43,000 kilometers in this province of very, very safe pipelines, so you kind of have me at hello on the concept. But let's talk about forestry, because you asked what we have to do. DRIPA is a big problem in the forestry sector, especially in the time I've spent actually in your neck of the woods, Aaron, up in Campbell River. We're dealing with some of the folks in the forest industry talking about how a permit with an established forestry company who's been doing this a long time, a permit used to take 4 to 6 months, like 5 years ago. It's now 24 to 36 months. A large part of that is DRIPA, but it's also the moving target of regulation that this government has imposed on an industry that's struggling to survive. We are cutting less than half of the annual allowable cut that the Chief Forester in this province says can be safely taken out of the woods because this government has made it unprofitable for these companies. The jobs are going, the mills are closing. Crofton's a great example. 350 families supporting jobs. That community would be devastated. This can be changed by a government who understands this, who understands and believes in these natural resources sector, can fix permitting, can make the regulatory regime workable, and get these folks back to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Black, and over to you, Mr. Ham. 90 seconds.
Mr. Black just said it well. I agree with him. We need to partner with our neighbors to the north in the Yukon, look to build power lines to the south to have energy into the Yukon and back. Also work with Danielle Smith next door for pipelines, and over into Saskatchewan. We want to improve our ports and rail systems so that we can get products to market and work and make it strong in the West. Stephen Harper started it years ago, and I think it's important that we work with our neighbors and build a really strong Western Canada and Canada. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. Now to Mr. Fulmer, 90 seconds.
Thank you. Look, we are blessed in this province with the most abundant resources in the world. You look at a country like Norway. Norway has less resources than British Columbia, but they harvested 3 times more trees than we did. Norway has a $2.1 trillion in the bank, their sovereign fund. And by the NDP's own numbers, in a couple of years, we'll be $250 billion in debt, right? And the problem is, we've got a premier and a cabinet in the NDP who don't believe in natural resources. And you ask the premier a question about natural resources, he kind of gets slightly sweaty. He looks at his feet, and there's a vein just here that starts to pop out a little bit. and you ask the Minister of Forestry in British Columbia about trees, and the last tree that he met was his Christmas tree. That's why we're in the place we're at, and that's what's got to change. My colleagues referenced we need to expedite permits, we need to solve Indigenous claims. Of course we need to do all of that. But you know what we also need? We need a Premier who's prepared to stand in the doorway of the Premier's office and handwrite permits to get resource development going. And when I'm Premier, if I have to find carbon paper and a pen and handwrite permits to get resource development going, to get good family-supporting jobs for British Columbians again, and to make our province the most prosperous province in the country and the envy of the Confederation and the envy of the world, then that's what I'll do. It's going to take courage, people, but I've got it.
Thank you, Mr. Fulmer. Mrs. Finley, finally to you for 90 seconds.
It's clear that we need a fighter as the leader of the Conservative Party of BC. We need to get rid of the NDP, which is the biggest barrier to us being prosperous again. If it need be, we need to have a fighter who will go behind enemy lines, because that's exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about our resources. I went to a forestry town hall in Duncan, the saddest meeting I've ever been at. Instead of going to work the next morning, they were talking about extension of their EI benefits. Our processing plants have shut down. Our refineries have shut down. And at the latest municipal conference, David Eby called forestry and ministry sunset industries. They're only sunset industries because he's decided ideologically that that's what he wants. Is that what you want? I don't believe so. No, we want to, I think I wasn't supposed to encourage that. Excuse me, I just did it. It was natural. But we need to bring our processing back into BC. We need refineries back in BC. We're selling our oil to the States at a discount. They refine it and sell it back to us at world prices. We've become raw log exports instead of processing our own here. We need that pipeline up north, but we also need a tanker to come and pick it up, and Eby doesn't like that idea. So we have 200 U.S. tankers a year going up and down the west coast of Vancouver Island. We can do this, and BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan should be a Western Canadian powerhouse together. Thank you.
All right, our next question. For many British Columbians, the dream of home ownership has never seemed further away. In Metro Vancouver, only 6% of young people believe home ownership is achievable, and Vancouver is consistently ranked among the top 5 least affordable major housing markets in the world. Other cities like Victoria are not far behind. What is your plan to make housing more affordable in British Columbia, and do you believe current home prices need to come down? The order for this question is Mr. Fulmer, Mr. Black, Mrs. Finley, and Mr. Ham. So 90 seconds to Mr. Fulmer.
Thank you. Look, this is a problem of our own creation. Right? We now know that in constructing a new home or a new condominium, 1/3 of the cost is directly attributable to one of the levels of government. 1/3. So the easiest way we can make housing more affordable for British Columbians and young British Columbians is to get the government the heck out of the way. Right? And this is the same point I made earlier. The role of the government is not to tax people into submission. The role of the government is to enable. And that's where the government in BC has lost its way. The NDP has found every way to take money out of your pockets, and housing is just another one of those examples where British Columbians are paying the price for poor housing policy and for poor government mismanagement of the economy, and they're taking it out on you. And they're taking it out on young British Columbians. And young British Columbians are leaving in numbers we have never seen before. Who would want to leave this province if you didn't have to, or if you couldn't imagine a life better and more affordable somewhere else? We have got to fix this. This is the best, our brightest, our youngest, our most energetic, our most enthusiastic, and the people who are going to pay taxes to support all of us as we age and need more resources. We've got to keep them in British Columbia, and if we don't take government out of the housing sector, it is not going to happen. This is government's fault, and the good news is government can fix it.
Mr. Black.
You know, I get asked by a lot of people, why did I decide to leave the business community and put my hat back in the ring for politics. And I got a very personal motivation for it. And that's because of my 3 children, 2 of them in Toronto. They're 26 and 24, young engineer and a young banker. Those jobs used to be here. But when I talked to my older boy who was looking at buying a house, I said, well, why don't you come back to BC? He says, I couldn't afford to come back. So you want to know why I'm standing on the stage? It's one great motivation. But you know, there's a lot of blame to go around on that one. And you're right, the provincial government's involved, but so are the cities. You've got CACs and DCCs, fancy terms for taxes that account to the 30-odd%. In fact, one of the developers I met with last week says a number when you include the regulatory burden, it's 42%. So think of a $1 million condo, which was unthinkable all those years ago. 420,000 of that is tax. And so I've got a couple of ideas there. I think we have to cap the DCCs and CACs as a fixed cost to the hard costs of building, so to provide some certainty to the development community so they've got the courage to start building stuff again. We've also got to get Metro Vancouver out of that business altogether. And we've got to get the zoning back into the hands of the city so the province stops interfering and meddling in that area. But the big thing we've got to do is get the provincial building code out of the way as well, which is causing a tremendous amount of extra cost for the builders as they go about building. But we've also got these 3 taxes, the speculation tax, the vacancy tax, the foreign buyers tax, and the short-term rentals. All of those are having an impact of housing as well. And frankly, they go against conservative principles. Because if I've earned enough money to buy a second residence anywhere in the world, no government should be telling me how many days a year I have to stay in it after I buy it with my own after-tax money. So those taxes all have to go.
Mrs. Finley?
Well, my colleagues here have already talked about bureaucratic bloat, but they're absolutely correct. A lot of the majority in some places of the cost of building new construction and housing is gatekeepers in the municipal governments, which are a creature of the provincial government. And it is the lack of money, frankly. Affordability is the #1 issue, along with property rights in BC, and has been and will be until we correct it. We need more powerful paychecks. We do that in a circular economy by getting our resources properly processed and refined and off to market. Then we have, you may not make more money, but you'll have more money at the end of the day in your pocket. If I can bring down taxes and gas and groceries, you'll have more money. And then when they come along with their wonderful ideas like a second mortgage stress test, which is very hard for people to qualify under, you're going to be in a better position to deal with it. The fact of the matter is their policies are wrong-headed all over the place. The Airbnb cutback, that really hurt people. Saying that you cannot own a second home or you have to live in that home to make it an Airbnb, this is wrong. If you are able to invest, you've worked hard, you should be able to invest where you choose. So we have to get rid of these bureaucrats, we have to get rid of the gatekeepers, and then our kids will stop saying they've got to go to Alberta to live. Yep.
Mr. Ham?
My friends have touched on most of the topics, but I'll share a story with you. I was in a meeting in Castlegar in the interior about 6 months ago, and there were developers there, members from City Hall, as well as Habitat for Humanity. And we spoke about the cost of housing and the story that came out with Habitat for Humanity. They built a sixplex that took 2 years to build. They were given the land, they were given many of the materials, and it still cost $775 a square foot, which was unaffordable. So on that note, we spoke about when government's involved and building affordable housing, the price will be even higher. And while they may decide to rent those units out once they're building affordable housing, it's ultimately subsidized by the taxpayer. So we need to make sure that we're creating an environment so that the private sector, home builders, are able to build in real time and at a lower cost. The BC building code that my friend mentioned, you know, we're building to a seismic standard in the interior of BC, and that changed not that long ago. Meetings with the housing minister were unsuccessful. She was busily traveling and posting on YouTube and didn't have time to meet to speak about things that really matter to British Columbians, especially in the interior.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. On to the next question. Over 15,000 British Columbians. That is how many have died from drug overdoses since the NDP took power in 2017. Their flagship so-called harm reduction policies, which were also supported by the former BC Liberal Party, included injection sites, the decriminalization of hard drugs, and the government provision of opioids, also known as safe supply. What is your plan for dealing with the addictions crisis, and how would it differ from that put forward by the former BC Liberals and current NDP? The order for this round is Mrs. Finley, Mr. Fulmer, Mr. Ham, and then Mr. Black. Mrs. Finley, to you for 90 seconds.
Well, thank you. This is one of the reasons I firmly believe that a tried and tested conservative who was talking against safe supply 5 years ago and 10 years ago is the person who should lead this party. Because the BC Liberals and BC United slid into the mushy middle, as I like to call it, and passed it when they supported decriminalization of drugs. This is so harmful. We've lost so many thousands of Canadians. People getting free drugs, so-called safe supply. Well, there is no such thing as safe supply of drugs. And they are selling their supply. We have a recovery society right here in New West called Open Door. The person who heads that up said that every one of his clients sell their free drugs to get harder drugs. It's quite a profit when you get it for free in the first place. I like the Alberta model. It seems to have been doing very well, where we have more investment in bringing our loved ones home drug-free. It cannot be this endless harm reduction, leaving people on the streets bent over. We need to help our people who are suffering from addictions, and we need to give them a pathway to a brighter and more purposeful life. I believe we can do it. If we care, we can do it, and I will care for those vulnerable in our society. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Finley. Over to Mr. Fulmer for 90 seconds.
Thank you. I want to be really clear with people, because harm reduction is such a pretty term, and people get confused. Harm reduction equals free drugs. Let's be incredibly clear. And I actually wish Caroline Elliott was here today, because she's spoken in favor of quote-unquote harm reduction, when what she meant to say was she was in favor of free drugs. She just used a way prettier term. But unfortunately, she's not here to respond. Look, my faith calls on me to do this. When somebody is lying face down in a gutter, addicted to drugs, whether that is my brother or my sister or my neighbor, my faith calls on me to pick that person up, perhaps against their will, and make sure they get the treatment that they need to recover. If it was my brother, I would do that. If it was my sister, I would do that. If it was your brother, I would do that. If it was your sister, I would do that. And if it was any of those people, I wouldn't say, well, I think it's your civil right to lie face down in the gutter addicted to drugs. I would say, I would put you over my shoulder and I would get you the help you needed. We need recovery beds, we need treatment beds, we need detox beds, and we need them when people need them. We don't need wait lists for detox beds. We don't need wait lists for recovery beds. We need these things available. That is what caring conservatives do. That's what we need to do.
Thank you, Mr. Fulmer. And you did mention another candidate, so we'll give them 30. Actually, no, sorry, we're going to move on.
I'll go down and answer for it.
Sorry there. Moving on to Mr. Sorry, I couldn't resist, folks. Mr. Ham, up for you for 90 seconds, sir.
Certainly, I align with my colleagues, but I'll share another story. I met a pharmacist in one of the hotels that owns a few pharmacies, one of them down on the east side, very close to the east side, and he told me this wasn't happening in his pharmacy, but it was happening in others. And what was happening was individuals were coming in with multiple prescriptions from their doctors that they were taking to multiple pharmacies, getting the free drugs that were providing them. And then the pharmacists typically get $30, $20 or $30 as a prescription fee, and pharmacists were giving cash back for each of these prescriptions. So who knows where that money was going after they left. But here we are supporting people that are vulnerable with free drugs, and then there's a cash back option available at the pharmacy. So between the doctors, the pharmacies, and the people on the street, you know, we've got a problem even in that circle. So I think it adds to the issue and needs to be resolved.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. And finally to Mr. Black, 90 seconds, sir.
There's probably no plank of my platform that I'm more passionate about than this one. It was the very first thing we announced was, as I mentioned earlier, the redevelopment of the 244 acres of what used to be called the Riverview Hospital in my community where I live. And the reason I went down this path is because I think we've lost a piece of humanity. We step over people on the street. We didn't do that when I was a wee kid. If somebody was lying on the street, you'd stop and say, are you all right? We don't do that now. And so when I went down this path of wanting to redevelop the Riverview lands, I envisioned a world-class facility of mental health and addictions recovery, of brain injury, and not just a research center that would be an academic draw from around the world, but also facilities to take care of people who are incapable of taking care of themselves. And we have to also, please, yeah. And we also have to take a page from what's being done well throughout the world. Models in Portugal, models in Italy and San Patriano as an example, but also what's been done next door in Alberta and some of the experiments that they've done there to so allow that we could have a hub and spoke model here in British Columbia so that it's not just about the services being available in the Lower Mainland. We have people watching tonight from all over British Columbia who are saying, well, wait a minute, we have these challenges in Fort St. John and in Cranbrook and in Kelowna. We have to make sure that these facilities are available throughout the province, but they are drawing on that center of excellence that I envision. And by the way, one very quick point. This will cost billions of dollars, but you know where we're going to get it? From the $6.5 to $8 million a day that we are spending on that 6 blocks of the downtown east side. That's over $2.5 billion a year.
Thank you, Mr. Black.
Only 2 questions remain tonight. Here's the second to last question. In the coming weeks, when BC Conservative Party members go to vote, they will be doing so using a ranked ballot. Excluding yourselves, which of your competitors do you believe would also make great premiers? And conversely, is there a specific candidate or two you believe members should be warned against? The order for this question is Mr. Black, Mr. Ham, Mr. Fulmer, Mrs. Finley.
Sorry, buddy. Sorry.
90 seconds to Mr. Black.
You know what, I got to tell you something. I think there's something we need to remember with the greatest of respect. We need to remember that our opponent in this contest is the NDP. Yeah. I have got some significant concerns about some of the stances and recent history of some of the other people in this contest. It's very unfortunate they're not here tonight to defend themselves, because I think they're meaningful. But I think that can be addressed in a fairly respectful way. And I honestly do. I'm very disappointed that they're not here, because I do think there are some key differences about how we would lead, what our values are, what our recent history is. But I'll tell you this, anyone who's willing to put themselves forward for public office, who's willing to sit here in front of a room full, we can't really see you all that well, of people, and be online, and to put yourself out and express your ideas and be willing to defend them, that is something that should be honored, it should be celebrated, and while I have concerns, we have to celebrate. So. My commitment, because I know you're looking for just a little raw meat in this one, so I'll give you just a little bit, okay? I have been asked many times whether I would run should I not be successful in my endeavor that I'm pursuing at the moment. And the answer I've always given it is my intent to do so. And I use that language, my intent. It's a tiny little bit of wiggle room for a very good reason. Because I've been involved in 6 or 7 of these in my life since I was a young teenager. And there is occasion when the person who wins it looks at you and says, I hope I never see you again in my life. It's like, oh, dude, I'm not going to do that if you don't want me there. So there is a little bit of that. But I also will tell you this. I'm concerned about some of the people behind the campaigns of some of the folks who aren't here tonight. I'm not going to be told what to do by Toronto. I'm not.
Next is Mr. Ham.
Well, I think your next leader is in front of you here, 1 through 4, and I think it's important to note that we have a responsibility to show up here regardless of our experience to make sure that we're able to answer your questions and earn your trust. The others not showing up, I guess that's their decision, but that should tell you something.
Mr. Fulmer?
You know, what I see on the stage here today, and I opened this by saying I thought we would all be in violent agreement and bore my son to tears, and I'm sure we've in fact done that, and he switched back to Mr. Beast quite a long time ago. But you've got 4 parents on the stage, for compassionate Conservatives who believe in British Columbia, who are all proud British Columbians, and they envisage a better British Columbia for everybody. So, I think, I agree with Warren. I think the next Premier of the province is standing on this stage today. And if it was any one of these people, I would run and run happily. I ran in 2024 in the last election as a Conservative, proudly. I'll run again as a Conservative in the next election with any of these people. What I don't want, thank you, what I don't want is our party to be taken over by Liberals. Let's be very clear. BC United not only folded its tent, it set it on fire and then threw it off a cliff. We are the Conservative Party. We need to be led by Conservatives who believe in Conservative values and will run a government under Conservative values. That is what we need to do. And you know who those people are. You know.
Mrs. Finley?
Leaders lead by example. Leaders are accountable. Leaders should be able to explain and debate their positions. Leaders should be able to do that with clarity and focus. If you don't show up to a debate, it makes me wonder whether you have those abilities, and there's no way we can know if they're not here to answer as we have been answering tonight. I am proud to stand with these three gentlemen. I think they all have something to offer, and they've been here, showed up. If you don't show up for work, you shouldn't get that job.
Yeah.
It's really
100%.
that simple. I have said from the beginning of my campaign that I thought it was really important that we have a Conservative as leader of the Conservative Party of BC. That should not be an amazing concept in my mind. And we have a couple of people who aren't here tonight who have a lot of explaining to do in terms of past support for SOGI, for DRIPA, for carbon tax, for condemning the Freedom Convoy, and other positions they took that are not Conservative. I am also, with my colleagues, very concerned that we have Ontario operators here trying to take over BC.
Thank you.
I think British Columbians are very capable of charting our own destiny. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Finley. Okay, final question of the evening. The resurrection of the BC Conservative Party, which began just 4 years ago, was directly precipitated by a profound frustration, dislike, and resentment of what had become of the former BC Liberal Party. How would you ensure this new BC Conservative Party stays true to its roots and doesn't return to the BC Liberal/United Party of old? The order for this is Mr. Ham, Mrs. Finley, Mr. Black, and then Mr. Fulmer. Mr. Ham, 90 seconds to you, sir.
Yeah, I think in this province, when people go to vote, there's the NDP, and then there's pretty much everyone else. So the fact that the NDP technically get 30% default vote leaves us having to get 51 over 70 to get a majority and get into government. So very difficult. It's something where we all need to work together. It is a big tent, but we've got to have Conservative values. That's what people expect. That's why they voted Conservative, and that's the name that's on my pin tonight and on the ballot when this leadership race moves forward.
Thank you, Mr. Ham. Mrs. Finley?
It's really very simple. I think you need to choose, as members of the Conservative Party of BC, a Conservative leader. If someone has shown over time, consistently, with competency and clarity, that they are Conservatives, if they're prepared to make the arguments for conservatism, less government, more freedom, less intrusion into our lives, then you should look at that person very seriously with your choice. If they have to defend what they said or did just 2-3 years ago, can you trust that person? And I think that we need to have trust in our leadership going forward. We need to know that we won't be fooled by somebody who sounds like a conservative today, but was not a conservative a very short time ago. These are important issues, and they're for all of you to look at and decide. So look at the record, because the best way to stop the Conservative Party of BC becoming Liberal Party 2.0 or United 2.0 is to pick a conservative leader. We had a rebirth in this party, but in 2022, I spoke at the BC Conservative AGM. I was there. Some of you would remember that. We have to have conservatives standing up for conservatives and a better way forward.
Thank you, Mrs. Finley. Mr. Black, 90 seconds to you, sir.
You know, there's a variation of this question I've had. I've done about 66, I think now, meet and greet and open houses in the last couple of months. And this question gets asked at a variation every time, which is, how are you going to win the election when you require some people who aren't card-carrying BC Conservatives to vote for us in order to do so? And the answer I give is, it's actually not that complicated. You stay true to just like 7 or 8 basic conservative values. So, government does not do as well with your money as you do, so you should keep more of it. Government's job is to pave the way and then get out of the way, which speaks to regulation. It's not government's job to interfere with what happens in your bedroom or your place of worship. Stay out of it. The notion that anything that can be done by the private sector should be done by the private sector. It is my belief that you can build a platform, a narrative, if you will, around those core conservative beliefs and put a vision of where you want to take British Columbia and the next generation of British Columbians and show hope and show some optimism about what we had achieved together. And you will be able to do that staying true to those conservative values, and you will get the votes from people who are fed up with the NDP and want to actually vote for a better future. And you're going to get people to vote for us who didn't vote at all last time so that we can get this province back on track.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Mr. Fulmer, to you, sir, 90 seconds.
Thank you. There's a lot of talk about big blue tents, right? And I think every candidate, including me, has spoken about having a big blue tent. I'd put one nuance on that. It's a big blue tent, and on the side of it, it says Conservative, right? It doesn't say Liberal. It doesn't say United. On the side of the tent, it says Conservative. Now, we need the tent flaps. I'm going to keep the tent analogy going for a while. Work with me. The flaps at both ends of the tent need to be open, and we need to invite people into our tent. But we do not move the tent. It stays with Conservatives. That's what we need to do.
Thank you, Mr. Fulmer.
Each candidate on stage now has 2.5 minutes for a closing statement, and we will go in the reverse order of your opening statement, which means we will start with Mr. Ham, 2.5 minutes.
British Columbia is on life support. You're working harder, paying more, and getting less. That's the reality, and it needs to change. There are many serious challenges facing British Columbia, and tonight we face many of them head on. But here's the truth. We're not going to fix these problems with the same thinking that created them. As the saying goes, for every mile of road, there's 2 miles of ditch. And right now, we're driving on the shoulder. I'm not a career politician, and I'm not going to pretend to be one. I'm a builder, and for 30 years, I've built businesses, created jobs, and solved real problems in this province. That's the leadership we need right now. Our infrastructure is falling apart, projects are delayed, canceled, redesigned, and delayed again. Costs go up, timelines slip, and nothing gets finished. Look at BC Ferries or the George Massey Tunnel Project. Tunnel, bridge, tunnel, years lost, taxpayers' dollars wasted, and nothing built. That's not leadership, that's indecision. We need to maintain what we have, and what we need to build was promised on time and on budget. We also need to work with our neighbors, not against them. Yukon Premier Curry Dixon to unlock clean, reliable northern power, Alberta Premier Daniel Smith to get our energy to global markets, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe to strengthen rail, expand ports, and move our resources. Finish what Stephen Harper started to ensure Canada becomes an energy superpower. Because when the West works together, we all win. We will start building opportunity again, infrastructure, and a future people can believe in. But we won't get there with recycled leadership. We won't get there by playing it safe, and we won't get there by hoping things fix themselves. Some of you are showing support for others on this stage or candidates that chose not to show here tonight. I respect that, but leadership means showing up, answering questions, and earning trust. So I'm asking you to take a serious look at who is ready to do the job and not just hold the title. Look on this stage tonight. If you believe British Columbia needs a new direction, visit me, warrenhambc.com, donate, become a member, and vote. Please think carefully before you mark your ballot. I thank you for your first choice vote, and I'm grateful for your second choice vote if you think I can participate in making this province better and getting it back on track. I give you my commitment for the next 10 years, not just a 4-year term, and I will work every day. I'm one of you. Let's get British Columbia back on track.
Mr. Fulmer, 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. As I've traveled the province, what I've really come to realize is the deal between government and its people in British Columbia is fundamentally broken. And the deal was this. The deal was you and I paid our taxes. And we could pay them grudgingly. We could complain about paying them, but we paid our taxes. And in return, the government did this. When we needed health care, it was available. Emergency rooms were open and you got treated immediately. If you needed to see a specialist or needed surgery, it was available soon. We all had a family doctor. The police kept our streets safe. When you called 911, the police came, they arrested the criminal and they took them away to jail. The government supported a private sector that created good, family-supporting jobs, so only mom or dad had to go out to work. The government kept business going. And you know, the only part of that deal that's still true today is you're paying your taxes. That's it. The whole deal is broken. And that's what I want to restore. I want to restore people's faith in government. And there is only one way I think we can do that heading into the next election, which could be called the day after this leadership race is over. We need to make sure that the right of centre is unified and that we do not split a vote. Everybody else has talked about how we get the right of centre to get along and to unify, and we've all, as I've said, talked about a big blue tent. But the reality is, 1BC is polling somewhere between 8 and 11% in British Columbia. Even the CBC has them polling 8%, and if the CBC's got them polling 8%, we're in trouble. The reality is, if they command that percentage of the vote in the next election, mathematically, we cannot win, and you get 4 more years of NDP broken government and the deal with you as taxpayers being broken. That's why I did the deal with Dallas, to make sure that British Columbians get a conservative government and that the vote is not split and that we do what we need to do, which is defeat the NDP at the next election. That's what we need to do, and that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Mr. Black, you have 2.5 minutes.
Tonight, you've heard a lot about what is wrong with British Columbia. But the reality is, people already know. You know it. You're living it. You're feeling it every time you pay rent, every time you buy groceries, and every time you try to plan for the future. And you feel it every time you engage with this government. You're frustrated, you feel shut out, and you often don't recognize the values or the priorities of the institutions that you fund with your tax dollars. The question is not whether change is needed. The question is, who is the experience to lead that change? I believe, as I mentioned earlier, that British Columbia can be the strongest economy, not just in Canada, but in the world, where people don't just get by, but they actually get ahead. But that does require focus, and it requires tenacity, and it requires discipline, and yes, it does require courage, but it requires leadership that is equipped to make the tough decisions and to deliver results. Experienced leadership. If there's one thing I've heard from you as I've traveled across this province repeatedly, it is that experience matters. It's what will lead to getting housing built faster and more affordably, growing our economy and getting the investment dollars back into the place, fixing the systems that are driving up costs for people, and restoring trust in our institutions. So allow me to conclude this evening by encouraging you to insist on 3 criteria as you look at who might lead this party into the next election. First, pick somebody who's actually led something, anything, to repeated success. Insist on that. Number 2, pick somebody who's got an understanding of the economy and the wheels and levers and pulleys that are available to fix this NDP mess. And third, pick somebody who has sat as a cabinet minister in Victoria, who doesn't need the 2-year tutorial on how to become an MLA, and who actually knows not just where the Premier's office is, but what it does. And you do not learn that in opposition. So tonight, as we leave here and we think about who you will choose to lead our party forward into the next election, I'll ask you but one simple question. Can you afford the risk of selecting a leader who does not have those skills and that experience required to defeat the NDP and make the changes that we all so desperately need? I am humbly asking for your vote so that together, and it will be together, that we get British Columbia back on track. Thank you so much for being here.
We now have 2.5 minutes for Mrs. Finley.
Those of you watching tonight will decide who will lead BC out of the fiscal and ideological wilderness. This is your home and mine. I'm a proven fighter. I've won and lost campaigns because I fought in swing ridings when the odds were against me. More often than not, I've won legal cases and I've won general elections. I never gave up. And right now, in BC, we desperately need a fighter. I fought and won all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada to save a Vancouver neighborhood under siege. And in Kelowna, when the government cancelled all Aboriginal leases on Duck Lake. I have acted for band members who felt overlooked by their own chief and councils. I understand we need economic partnerships with Indigenous, but our collective history deserves respect as well. Let's celebrate all that is good in our shared time, including fighting shoulder to shoulder during war. Let's learn from when we stumbled and determine to do better together. I am the only candidate in this race who is governed as a Conservative, although I agree with everything Ian said about experience. Margaret Thatcher said, "First you win the argument, then you win the vote." I will unite our party on common ground. And Jordan Keeley's here tonight. He's an independent endorsing me. Thank you, Jordan. And I will present us as a government in waiting. This is the way to win. We need clarity of vision, a clear voice, and a choice to defeat the NDP. We cannot blur political lines and slide into and past the middle of the failed BC Liberal and failed BC United parties. Those were supposed to be coalition parties, but Conservatives lost faith. They voted for the carbon tax, DRIPA, SOGI in schools, calling it just anti-bullying, supported the NDP COVID handling, and condemned the Freedom Convoy. Now David Eby and the NDP today congratulate Caroline Elliott for supporting them on SOGI and safe supply. She said Laurie Thronus's ideas were abhorrent to her. Just today, Eby is praising her in Millabar for not showing up here because they said this debate, we are all extremists. Well, they are the extremists. They are the ideologues, not us. We should be a free people with free choices in a free enterprise economy. Go to finleyforbc.ca, take out a membership. Faith, family, freedom, think on it. Compassion, dedication, and conservatism is the answer. God bless BC, and God bless all of you.
Thank you, Mrs. Finley. And after all the work you guys have done today, answering questions. I got a lot more answers tonight than I do usually in question period, I have to say, in Ottawa.
I know that.
A quick question for the audience. Aren't you glad they all had the political courage to show up here tonight? Yes. And we just have some quick closing remarks. Running in a leadership contest is very demanding, and these four BC Conservative leadership candidates took time out of their packed schedules to communicate their ideas directly to all of you and British Columbians across the province, and we thank them for that.
As a reminder to all those watching at home, if you would like to vote in this leadership race to make one of these individuals the next leader of the BC Conservative Party and Premier of British Columbia, you must have bought your Conservative Party membership by April 18th by going to conservativebc.ca. I would also like to acknowledge the professional team at our venue here, Anvil Centre, our lighting and sound techs, and our streaming company, Stream City. Let's give them a round of applause as well. And with that, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you.